Hi. What do you think?
Very nice.
What's wrong?
Why don't you ask him what's wrong? Then maybe you won't have to hear it from Carol Lazenby.
You're what?
Dad, I quit the swim team.
What?
Carol thought I knew. Of course, why wouldn't I? It happened over a month ago.
Why didn't you tell us, Connie?
I don't know. I didn't think it mattered.
What do you mean? Why wouldn't it matter? Of course it matters.
No, that was meant for me, Calvin.
What was meant for you?
It's really important to try to hurt me, isn't it?
Don't you have that backwards?
Oh? And how do I hurt you? By embarrassing you in front of a friend? Poor Beth. She has no idea what her son is up to. He lies and she believes every word of it.
I didn't lie.
You did. You lied every time you came into this house at 6:30. If it's starting all over again, the lying, the covering up, the disappearing for hours, I will not stand for it. I can't stand it. I really can't.
Well, don't then. Go to Europe.
Connie, now Connie.
Well, the only reason
Connie,
she cares, the only reason she gives a fuck about it
Connie.
is because someone else knew about it first.
Just stop it, Connie.
No, you
Stop
tell her to stop it. You never tell her a goddamn thing. And I know why she never came to the hospital. She's busy going to goddamn Spain and goddamn Portugal. Why should she care if I'm hung up by the balls out there?
Maybe this is how they sit around and talk at the hospital, but we're not at the hospital now.
You never came to the hospital.
Connie,
How
now
do you
your
know
mother
about the
did come to the
hospital?
hospital. Now, you know that she did. She had the flu, and she couldn't come inside, but she came to the
Yeah, well, she
hospital.
wouldn't have had any flu if Buck was in the hospital. She would have come if Buck was in the hospital.
Buck never would have been in the hospital.
That's enough. That is enough.
I won't do it again. I really won't do it.
What in hell has happened?
Hello, I'm film historian Tony Maeda.
And I'm Brad Shreve, who's just a guy who likes movies.
We discuss movies and television from Hollywood's golden age. We go behind the scenes and share our opinions, too.
And of course, being the average guy, my opinions are the ones that matter.
As does your self-delusion. Welcome to Going Hollywood. Happy Mother's May, Brad.
Mother's May?
Mother's May.
You mean Mother's Day?
No. Mother's May. It's a new holiday here exclusively on Going Hollywood. Because all month we are celebrating mothers.
I was going to ask Mother's May what? But mothers make movies.
Mother's May I? No, it's a whole month. We're doing a whole month, listener, of mother-related films. And in some instances, we mean that literally. And some we mean it ironically. And that's all I'm going to say. But today, I think we mean it literally, Brad, for our very first one.
Yes, we do. And I want to tell you something before we begin talking about this film.
Mm-hmm.
You know, normally I watch these films days in advance. I watch them 2 or 3 times. And I forgot we were recording today. I thought it was later in the week. So I didn't watch it till last night.
So you
Now,
should
let me
be
tell you
fresh.
This. Well, I am fresh, but there is a movie that Maurice will not watch.
Oh.
He says it is a great film. We're talking about Seven.
Uh-huh.
He says it's a great film, but it's so disturbing he never wants to watch it again. Kind of the way I feel about Schindler's List.
I understand that. Yeah.
Ordinary People is now on there.
Oh, really?
I was so pent up and so shaken by the end of the film. I almost sent you a message to say, I don't think I can do it today.
Really? Oh my
Yes.
God!
It was that emotional for me.
Your reaction was that strong.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes.
We're talking about Ordinary People. By the way, we kind of buried the lead there. Today's film from 1980, our very first film for our Mother's May celebration this month is Ordinary People, starring Donald Sutherland, Timothy Hutton, Judd Hirsch, and yes, the mother. None other than Ms. Mary Tyler Moore. I'm really kind of I kind of love the fact that you were so affected by this, Brad. That's kind of wonderful, I think. I mean, I'm sorry that you feel like you never have to watch it again. But I'm sorry if you're going through drama, but I love the fact that this movie was so affecting.
I had seen it before, but it was so long ago. I remembered absolutely nothing. I don't. I must have been in a mood where it didn't bother me. Who knows? Maybe I was drunk.
Okay.
But I didn't remember anything at all, and so this time I was like so shooken up. I'm like, wow.
Well, I got to tell you my journey with Ordinary People. I watched it. I mean, I've seen it off and on throughout the years, of course. And I watched it again in preparation for this a few days ago. But my journey, my experience with Ordinary People goes way back to 1980, because you know how I feel about Mary Tyler Moore. I mean, it's, she's just one of my icons, Mary Tyler Moore.
How can she not be? She's always so bubbly and happy and carefree.
You're talking about Mary Richards or Laura Petrie. You're not talking about Mary Tyler Moore or, God knows, Beth Jarrett.
No, definitely not.
So my mother, my real mother, knew how much I love Mary Tyler Moore when this film came out. And so she took me and a friend to see this in the theater because it was rated R. So I was too young. Yes, there was actually a time when I was too young to get into an R-rated movie. And I can't tell you, it was a bit awkward sitting in the theater watching this R-rated film with her, especially when they started talking about jerking off. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh dear. But mostly,
and they say fuck a lot.
Oh yes, a lot. But mostly because, and I know I'm not alone with this, with a lot of gay men, I think, my mother reminded me of two actresses. She reminded me at times, and it's very funny, of Carol Burnett, and she reminded me of Mary Tyler Moore. More Mary Tyler Moore than anyone else, because, she had that Jackie Kennedy, Laura Petrie flip hairstyle in the 60s, like so many women did. And later she had the long Mary Richards, locks, which was actually a wig. And at about the time of Ordinary People, her hair was very kind of much the feathered bouffant that Mary has in this movie. So it was a little bit of a meta experience. And, my mother was nowhere near as extreme as Beth Jarrett. But my mother did have a certain reserved quality. And so when I watch Ordinary People, I recognize her in Beth Jarrett and vice versa. So I have a lot I want to say when we talk about the character of Beth Jarrett and Mary Tyler Moore's, how she felt about it. So my experience with this film is it can be very emotional for me because it does at times remind me of my own mother. But I also find it, especially Mary Tyler Moore, gut-wrenching and beautiful at the same time.
It is extremely gut-wrenching, and I'll jump in here because my family doesn't listen. One of the reasons I did find it so difficult is I watched this and I thought, God, I wish my family had been that happy. No, I come from a household where we talk about nothing.
I wish my family
nothing.
I wish my family had been that rich. Just like,
Well, yeah, they certainly, as far as money goes, they were not ordinary people.
Well, I was going to say that now the title Ordinary People is not ironic. It looks ironic now, but when it was written, it was not meant as an ironic comment. Robert Redford's idea was these were ordinary people. And I want to say, despite the reputation it has now, these lifestyles are far from ordinary. I mean, we have incredibly affluent people living in this gorgeous house in this wonderful North Shore Chicago neighborhood. Maybe we should call it aspirational. No, anyway, I'm not going to talk about it.
I'm going to read you a review by a critic that didn't like this movie. And I'm only going to do this because the critics love this movie.
Right.
But
at the time.
At the time. And as I was looking at the reviews, a couple of them that were bad ones jumped out at me, and I normally ignore them, but it was funny. So Pauline Kael, I think that's how you pronounce her last name.
Yes, it is. Yes.
With the New Yorker, she said, the movie is just as sanitized as the fantasy of upper middle class life it sets out to expose. And it's just as empty and orderly. To kind of put a pin on what you were just talking about.
You know what? Pauline the Pill Kael. I can't. I would do 3 podcasts on Pauline Kael. I can't. Pauline Kael, very problematic woman. But anyway, sometimes she was also very funny and very biting. But yeah, I mean, no, those are valid criticisms of the time. But you were right in that, as I don't think I'm giving any spoiler alerts here. We should probably do spoiler alert. This film won the Oscar in 1980 for Best Picture, and it beat a little film called. And will beat 4 other films, but it beat a little film called Raging Bull. And it was incredibly popular at the time, but its reputation over the years has become a bit tarnished because it beat Raging Bull, because Raging Bull has become kind of mythic in film history. But I got to tell you, when I watched this film again, I was like, I'm glad it won Best Picture. I think it absolutely deserved all of the Oscar nominations and the Oscars that it won.
And listener, it had 6 nominations and won 4 of those, which we can get into now, or we'll get into it later. I will say I have
At the end, yeah.
never seen Raging Bull, and there's a reason why. I so dislike boxing as a sport. I know it's considered one of the classics of classics, and I've just never had desire to see it.
But a movie which gained in reputation over the years, that's the thing. Ordinary People at the time was the front runner of everything. And it kind of, as time went on and Raging Bull kind of came to the forefront, and De Niro's performance became more and more mythic, and so did the film and the things that Scorsese did in the film. This is a completely different film. I don't know how you can compare them, you know.
Well,
go ahead.
Do the critics today feel less towards this film as they did originally?
Yes, it's
Because
just
I have an idea why. As I'm watching it, and I'm thinking this is a good movie, but because it was made in the 80s, I felt like I was watching an adult after-school special.
Oh my God, 80s flashbacks.
Yes.
Could you die? Wedge haircuts. I feel sorry for people who don't know what a Dorothy Hamill wedge haircut is. Both of my of my sisters had Dorothy Hamill haircut, and I had one that was pretty damn close, I'll tell you right now. I'm watching this, I'm thinking, oh my God, those above the thigh gym shorts and clogs and cable knit sweaters that Judd Hirsch is always in. And oh my God, people jogging in jogging suits.
Jogging suits, yes.
They were actually wearing the jogging suits to jog in with the towel around their neck. Yes, this movie is a huge, huge 80s flashback. So if you weren't alive during the 80s and you want a little taste of the 80s, definitely watch this movie. But, you know, you talked about the Oscar nominations, and I want to say that at the time, it was a big heartbreak for me because Mary Tyler Moore was nominated as Best Actress, and she did lose to Sissy Spacek. Now, it is really hard for me to argue with Sissy Spacek's win because Sissy Spacek is fucking brilliant in Coal Miner's Daughter. She is Loretta Lynn. There's just I can't separate them. But, you know, I'm also sad for Mary. But Mary, to her credit, said she felt completely vindicated just to be nominated. And besides, she has how many Emmys to console her? So I don't think it was actually a win for Mary Tyler Moore just to be nominated at this point in her career, which we can get into later.
She probably had no more room in her cabinet.
Well, exactly. I mean, those Emmys are big, you know.
And I would wrestle anybody that tried to tell me that Sissy Spacek shouldn't have won that year.
Yeah, I mean, it was a brilliant performance. So anyway, yeah. So I think we need to talk a little bit about the background of Ordinary People and kind of put it in context of the time of the 80s and how this whole thing came about.
Well, let's talk about what the movie is about first.
All right. Well, I'm going to let you do that then.
It's a very quick and easy one to do.
Quick synopsis, Brad.
Very quick synopsis. The oldest son of an ordinary family, air quotes, in the Chicago suburbs drowns in a boating accident. And 18 months later, after the second son has been home for 9 months after attempting to kill himself, each of the remaining family members, the father, the mother, and the son...
Conrad,
thank you. I could only remember Connie.
Works.
Each family copes in their own way, and none of them in a good way. And the father's the closest, but he even is a little too, for lack of better, patronizing is the word that's coming to mind, but not really. But we see Conrad's perspective mostly from the psychiatric appointments he goes to, not entirely, but mostly, and the parents as they try to return to normal life.
Do you know the psychiatric appointments with Judd Hirsch, with the character of the doctor Berger, who is played by Judd Hirsch? Do you know those were all shot at once, one after the other, because Judd Hirsch could only get like 8 days off from Taxi. So they had to film them one after the other, which, I mean, look, it's not unusual in a movie. Movies are usually shot out of sequence. It's very rare that a movie's shot in sequential order. But I always think that's like, God, this is why acting is such an emotionally challenging job, because these actors have to keep this heightened emotion all the time, you know, so it's very taxing. So yeah, taxing. Haha, pun. So one after the other, because Judd Hirsch had to get back to Taxi.
That might have been to the benefit of the film, though, because those were so emotional and so exhausting.
It was.
And both characters, especially Timothy Hutton, were so worn down. Maybe that helped those scenes.
I think so. I really do. I things happen for a reason in films. So I think that's true. But this movie, Ordinary People, was based on the book Judith Guest's first novel, and it began as a short story, Ordinary People. It was published in 1976. And Judith Guest is the great-grandniece of poet Edgar Guest. So for our erudite listeners out there, that was for you. And Robert Redford read the book when it was in galleys. And all the way back to 1975, Redford had told his good friend and friend of the pod, Sidney Pollack, whom we talked about in Tootsie, that he wanted to direct. And everyone knew that he would eventually end up directing because Redford thought like a director. He was a painter, after all. So he began his life he wanted to be a painter before he became an actor.
And who was going to tell Redford no?
Who's going to tell about anything? I wouldn't tell Robert Redford no about anything. And Redford, looking back, he said he can see that he collected little bits and pieces of life's observations as he was growing up. A line from a book here, or a character in conversation there, a piece of music, Pachelbel canon, which is used throughout Ordinary People, which hadn't been heard from in years, and then it became ubiquitous after this movie came out. I remember my sister had an album of Pachelbel canon. It's like, wow. Yeah. So he was ready. He was primed when he got this film, when he got this book, and he knew he wanted it to be his first movie. So he contacted his friend Alvin Sargent, who was a very well-known, very well-respected screenwriter. He
had a whole list of films. I was impressed. I can't remember off the top of my head.
And according to Alvin Sargent, he worked on it. Well, Redford said that Sargent worked on the screenplay for about a year. And he was having a real trouble relating to the characters. So Redford took him to some parties in the North Shore of Chicago, where Ordinary People is set. This incredible neighborhood of incredible affluence. And he said to him, he took him to a couple parties, and he said, look how seamless these people, look how seamless their facade is. Mm-hmm. You have to go past it. You have to go to the subtext. And one of my favorite scenes in Ordinary People is that party scene, because people are just talking nonsense to each other, ridiculous things to each other that make absolutely no sense. And one party goer says to Donald Sutherland's character, "I'm not talking to you," and then he turns and walks away, and you're like, "What the hell was that?" Just stupid things.
At first, I was like, "What was his directorial decision to do this?" And then it was, well, actually, Marie said, "This is rather mundane," and I'm like, "Now I get it. It's supposed to be."
That's the point.
Yeah.
But I want to talk more about the party sequence, particularly Mary Tyler Moore in the party sequence, because I think it's a brilliant scene of hers. So he got the idea, the screenplay was done, and every studio, all these studios that Redford had made millions upon millions of dollars for as an actor, turned him down, except Paramount. And Paramount said, "We'll do it for you, but we want you to star in it." And Redford said he absolutely refused. He said, "I laid down the law." He said, "I am not acting in this. I am directing it. And the only way they would do it is if they paid him scale." So he did. So he made scale as a director $30,000 to direct this film.
Wow.
So yeah, but he knew. He believed in it.
Did he get a percentage, I hope?
Well, later he got $300,000. So
Okay.
Later the studio
decided,
they
needed it, but it's always nice.
Later the studio was like, "Okay, here's $300,000. Okay, fine." So he had the screenplay done, and he knew he wanted to work on this, and he started to think about people that he wanted to cast. And do you know who the first choice to play Conrad? I'm not Conrad. Calvin, the father, the Donald Sutherland part. Calvin. Do you know who the first choice was?
No, I know Conrad, but I can't think of Calvin.
Well, it was interesting because Redford had a cast in mind, all set to go. For Calvin, he wanted Gene Hackman. For Beth, he wanted Mary Tyler Moore from day one, and we'll talk about that. And for the doctor, he wanted Richard Dreyfuss, which would have been a really good cast. I think Gene Hackman would have been a beautiful Calvin, but they couldn't come to terms with money.
Yeah, it's interesting. I do remember that now that you mention it. I did some research on some background on this film, and I kept seeing over and over again that Gene Hackman couldn't do it because he was tied up doing Superman 2. And then I found the article, found an interview he did in '85 where he said it all came down to the money and he regretted the decision.
They always regret the decision when it comes to money. They always regret it. Yeah. He wanted Hackman, but Michael Eisner was running Paramount at this time, and he had his own suggestions. And one of the people that he suggested for Beth was Lee Remick, and then Sidney Pollack suggested Jane Fonda. So everybody always had an opinion about who he wanted to play this part. But when it came to the part of Beth, the mother, Redford was pretty adamant. And the reason is because he and Mary Tyler Moore didn't know each other. Okay. They knew each other in not the Hollywood sense. They knew each other, but they didn't know each other personally. But they were neighbors in Malibu, and they would often pass each other on the sand. And Mary Tyler Moore would never speak to him. She would just look up and smile or nod her head and would never engage. And then there were other times where Redford said he would see her walking along the shore on the beach, apparently deep in thought. And he said, and that's when I began to wonder about the dark side of Mary Tyler Moore. Because Mary Tyler Moore at this time, of course, as we all know, had just finished her iconic 7-year run on the Mary Tyler Moore Show. She was Mary Richards. And before that, she was Laura Petrie. So she was America's sweetheart. Here's another America's sweetheart we've got here. Mm-hmm. But she truly owned that. But I think it's so genius that Redford saw something in her untapped. This is what a good director does. He sees something in her untapped, and he's like, I wonder what the dark side of Mary Tyler Moore is like. I think it was a brilliant casting choice, and he went to the mat for Mary Tyler Moore. Mary Tyler Moore said that he called her in, and he said they talked during the interview. And he confessed to her that, he was really intrigued about casting her, and she was very excited about that opportunity. But he was concerned that her image as Mary Richards might destroy her believability. Mm-hmm. So, because Paramount wanted them to, Mary Tyler Moore said for 3 months, he saw every single actor in Hollywood. Mm-hmm. And he finally was convinced that it should be back to his first choice, Mary Tyler Moore. And that's because, Mary Tyler Moore was at a crossroads in her career at this point. She said herself, my comedy years were over. Her marriage to Grant Tinker was ending. Her 2 variety show follow-ups to the Mary Tyler Moore Show were not successful. And she said, I was in a state of forced reevaluation. So this felt like the next step for her, the perfect step. But again, they took some convincing. And about this time, Mary's agent suggested to a Broadway producer, Manny Eisenberg, that Mary replace Tom Conti in a production of Whose Life Is It Anyway on Broadway, which is a play about a character who is facing their own mortality. They've been in a severe accident, and it's about euthanasia, basically.
Great movie with Richard Dreyfuss.
Yeah. So here's the thing, and it was played by Tom Conti. So Mary went in as a female character, which was a brilliant casting coup, and it also showed Paramount and proved Robert Redford's point that, hey, if Eisenberg is going to believe that Mary Tyler Moore could handle a dramatic role on Broadway, then she could do Ordinary People. Mm-hmm. So that's what happened. It convinced Paramount, it convinced Redford that she was right for the part, but she had to film Ordinary People before she even went to Broadway to do this play. So I think that's kind of fascinating that, Mary Tyler Moore had to prove that she could play this part.
And that seems more common now.
What do you mean?
For an actor to go from comedy to drama and vice versa.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, it was done before, but, comedy, with the famous line, dying is easy, comedy is hard. If somebody can do comedy, pretty damn good chance they can do drama. I mean, it's the other way around. Very frequently, I mean, how much I love Bette Davis. Mm-hmm. But sometimes when Bette Davis did a comedy, you're just like, oh, Betty, please go back to Little Foxes.
Yeah, both Jim Carrey, who I do not like his comedy, but both Jim Carrey and Robin Williams, I like both of them better in dramas.
Brilliant.
As much as I love Robin Williams, both as a comedian and as a dramatic actor, I really appreciate his dramas.
Yeah, no, it's true. If you have the chops to do comedy and do comedy well, and nobody did comedy better than Mary Tyler Moore, then chances are you can do drama. Same thing with Lucille Ball. I mean, it's the same thing. They're actresses. They can do anything. So anyway, when the whole Gene Hackman situation, Redford didn't know what he was going to do, and he actually turned to Donald Sutherland to play the therapist, to play the part of Dr. Berger. And Sutherland came in to read, and he told Redford that he really wanted to play Calvin, the father. And Redford said he was so impressed with his honesty and his passion for the role that he's like, okay, done, cast. Pretty easy.
One thing I was disappointed in is, of the 4 main leads, Donald Sutherland was the only one not nominated for an Oscar. And I don't know who else was nominated that year, so I can't judge whether he was better or worse, but I thought he was outstanding in this role.
Well, yeah, but I mean, you have De Niro, in Raging Bull. I mean, that, how do you argue with that performance? I think Robert Duvall was nominated, I think, that year. John Hurt. This is also the year of The Elephant Man. We talked about during the Mel Brooks episode, which also nominated for Best Picture. I think also, was it Peter O'Toole and Jack Lemmon? Yeah. That was it, because Peter O'Toole has never won an Oscar, and this was one of the many times he was nominated. So, yeah, it's unfortunate that he was the only one of the main cast who wasn't nominated, and he should have been, but who are you going to knock off there? I don't want to knock off any of those people. They were all pretty brilliant. I mean, The Elephant Man, wow.
Yeah, that's quite the royalty there.
Yeah, it really was. But he's wonderful. And it was an unusual role for Sutherland. We think of Sutherland from Clute. We think of Sutherland from MASH. And this was, this kind of, you can see the Gene Hackman-esque, the Gene Hackman-ish qualities of Sutherland in this role. And I think he's absolutely wonderful in it.
And I don't know if you caught it, there was something meta in this film, because as Judd Hirsch is talking to Conrad, Timothy Hutton, he says, "You look like one of the body snatchers."
I didn't catch that when it happened, but yeah, you're absolutely right. That is kind of meta. But and that leads us to, nice segue there, Brad, to Timothy Hutton, who did win an Oscar for this role as Best Supporting Actor. And Redford said that Conrad, not surprisingly, was the hardest role to cast, because you need a teenage-ish actor to play a very, very heavy, dramatic, difficult, complex role. And I guess there was a big search. They searched high and low. They searched in theater repertories in LA and New York and St. Louis. And then a publicist, Robert Redford's publicist, sent him a tape of the film Friendly Fire, in which featured a young actor named Timothy Hutton, who was actually the son of Jim Hutton, who was a movie star in the 60s and 70s. And Redford knew that Jim Hutton, he had just recently died of cancer. He knew Jim Hutton, and he had just recently died of cancer. And, it's unfortunate, but one of the reasons why Timothy Hutton is so good it was because of what he was going through in his personal life, coming to grips with the loss of his father. So his emotions were right there. They're right there.
Now, he did say in an interview he did not use that, but that's impossible to shake that off.
You can't not.
Yeah.
You can't.
It may not have been a conscious thing, but it was there.
No, any good actor is going to use it. You use it subconsciously, perhaps. But yeah, you use it. But Redford's such a genius in this, and he does this. And we've talked about William Wyler did this. Sidney Pollack did this. He told the cast and crew during filming to leave Timothy alone. Leave him alone. You can say hello to him in the morning. You can be pleasant to him. Don't engage him. And Timothy started to get a complex. Well, what is going on with Conrad? Conrad is feeling alienated. Conrad is feeling unseen. That's how good directors do it. You may think, ooh, that was kind of cruel, but it's no crueler than loading a suitcase full of books and giving them to Olivia de Havilland and saying, go up the stairs for the 1900th time. That's what good directors do, So he put his actor in the right emotional state, adding to the emotional state he was already in. And Redford said he felt like Hutton was pretty much an open wound during this whole filming, which, if you watch it, you can see it. That's what's so wonderful about Timothy Hutton in this part. But so when he went to I know what I wanted to say. So he went to the first audition, and Elizabeth McGovern was already cast as Janine, Conrad's school friend. And he said that when McGovern and Hutton were together in the reading, he said it just blew him away. He said there was no question. These were the right two people for this part. But I have to ask you, because this was my reaction seeing this again after many years. Elizabeth McGovern, what the hell happened to her? She is wonderful in this. Speaking of Invasion of the Body Snatchers, who came and took Elizabeth McGovern's soul? Because she ain't nothing like this on Downton Abbey. She's a walking ghost in Downton Abbey. She's so wonderful in this. She's so alive. She's so funny. She's so quirky. I just want to know what happened to her. What happened to her?
I think she's having a baby is what happened to her.
You think so?
Well, I like that film because there's aspects of it that I think are wonderful, but it's actually not a very good film.
Oh, you mean the film she's having a baby? I'm like, what?
Yes.
She had a baby? What are you talking about? Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Maybe that's what happened to her. I don't know.
I was just like, I was doing double and triple takes. I was like, wait, because I knew Elizabeth McGovern was in it. I remember her from that. But I thought, what the hell happened? You were a wonderful actress. And not so much anymore. But you know who was one?
I wanted to see more of Dinah Manoff. She was great.
I was going to say, you know who was wonderful is Dinah Manoff.
Yeah.
Dinah Manoff.
Yeah, I hate that she left acting, but
well, daughter of Lee Grant, so pretty damn good gene pool there. And Dinah Manoff was, oh my God, it is a shame she left because she was so wonderful in this. She was wonderful in Grease as Marty Maraschino. Remember her in Grease? She was so great. She was hysterical in Empty Nest. And, I'm not a huge Empty Nest.
She was great on Soap even. I remember there.
She was wonderful on Soap. So, yeah, she's wonderful in this. She's great. This entire cast is wonderful. I think that this is one of the most perfectly cast films. I don't know if ever. I don't want to make that kind of hyperbolic statement, but you can't deny that despite the problems that he may have had in initial casting, he got the right cast for this.
Yeah, and when I saw Dinah Manoff's scene, I knew right away from her phony "everything's wonderful" that she was going to end up dying, and I kept saying, "Now I hope she comes back before that happens," and she never did. I was so disappointed because she was wonderful to watch.
Yeah,
she did so well.
One scene, and she's just, let's have a good Christmas, Conrad. Let's have the best Christmas. It's just like, oh my God. Yeah, and we know what happens. I think one of the brilliant things about this film and the passage of time, and in Timothy Hutton in particular, you see it, because when this movie starts, he looks like someone who just came out of, I don't want to call it a mental institution, but he was, after he tries to commit suicide, he is taken away to a hospital, and he comes out and you look at him and his hair is really short and he's got those dark circles on his eyes and he's so gaunt and he's so jumpy and edgy and nervous. And then as the movie progresses and he slowly begins healthier and healthier till the end of the movie, and he looks great. You know what I mean? He looks like a typical teenager who's just just coming home from school. It's a really slow progression, but you see the emotional changes that Conrad goes through working with the doctor are manifested in his physical change. He looks bigger. He looks heftier. I mean, it's wonderful. He's a wonderful performance. It absolutely deserved his Oscar for this performance. So a lot of the movie was filmed on location in Lake Forest, Illinois.
Pretty obvious.
Because those are, you can't fake those incredible Chicago suburbs.
Yeah.
And I guess Redford, this was Redford's first film. So pretty amazing that you win an Oscar for directing your first film.
And the film being an Oscar winner as well. Yeah,
and the film being an Oscar winner. I mean, and Redford was the first. After this, Warren Beatty went on to win the Oscar for Reds, and then Clint Eastwood. So, I mean, yeah. So Redford was probably the very first movie star to then turn to. It never won an Oscar for an actor, but then would win one for directing. And Redford, I guess, approached his actors like he was approached, like Mike Nichols worked with him. He stayed very close to the actor. He's just an actor's director. And Sutherland said that he totally handed his trust to the actors. He gave them the space they needed to find the role. And Mary Tyler Moore said that he was very kind to her, but he gave her time to investigate the role. He restricted nothing. He just kept an eye on her Mary Richards gestures. That was the only thing he watched. He was like, no, that's a Mary Richards gesture. Oh, don't slap your thigh. That's what Mary Richards would do. So it's kind of interesting. He kept an eye on that and kept her in check. And I'm sorry, but when I watch her, there is no resemblance to Mary Richards here in this performance.
No,
I mean,
no.
it's just...
No, none whatsoever.
It's just amazing. So I'd like to talk about a couple scenes.
I want to speak on Timothy Hutton first.
Oh, please do. Please do.
Because when it started, Maurice and I had different reactions. Well, very similar. The first thing Maurice said was, oh, this is a movie about him on drugs.
Mm.
And of course, I didn't correct him. I let him figure it out on his own. Because he looked so bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
My first reaction was, oh my goodness, Timothy Hutton really grew into his looks. But then at the end of the film, I'm like, oh, no, that's Timothy Hutton. He's really hot.
Yeah.
You know, very young, hot man. So
yeah, it's true. No, it was a real physical change and an emotional change.
mm-hmm.
And
it really was.
And he won the Oscar. So I love to talk about some of these scenes. I love, as we talked about just a bit earlier, the party scene. Because what I love about that scene is not only the ridiculous dialogue, which means nothing but says everything underneath, is how loose and engaged Beth is. If you notice, when Beth is in a social setting, why? Because it's all surfacey.
Mm-hmm.
When she's in a social setting, she is the warmest, the most charming. Mary Tyler Moore is smiling and laughing because it's all show.
Mm-hmm.
Because she doesn't have to go deep. You know, she's one of these people. She can do that easily because it's not engaging with someone on a profound level. That's the problem. So she's very good at that. She's always very good in public. She's always very good in these social settings. But in that party scene, she's wonderful until she overhears Calvin talking with a friend of theirs about Conrad and his doctor. And it immediately changes because it suddenly just got real.
Yep. Yeah.
And she can't deal with it.
Yeah. And she handled that so well because she didn't get angry. She didn't act angry or upset. But you could see the tension and the way she walked over and talked just like would happen in real life.
Mm-hmm.
Honey, you know, kind of steer the direction.
Yes.
And then we're going to talk about this later. It was really well done. It was very real.
And then, you know, they're in the car and it's Iceland.
Yeah.
There it is. I mean, on the drive there, they're warm and they're funny. They're talking about going to a movie instead of the party and they're laughing. And then on the drive back, and apparently Calvin's had a couple martinis. So I'm like, well, why is he driving? But, you know.
Hey, it was the 80s.
Yes, it was the 80s. Iceland.
And I know Beth Jarrett.
Yeah?
Now, my dad was like that. It was all about appearances, but nothing to this degree. But I know some Beth Jarretts who, it doesn't matter what's happening in the world, you act like everything's wonderful.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. And when you think about, should we talk about Mary Tyler Moore and the character of Beth, do you think?
Sure, let's go there. We're already there.
I think that's probably a good time. So Mary Tyler Moore hated when people called Beth, come up to her and say she was such a bitch. And Mary Tyler Moore said she was not a bitch. She was a victim.
Mm-hmm.
She was taught by her mother, and you kind of get a glimpse of this in the movie.
You see just enough to know.
Just enough to know that it comes from mother to daughter. She was taught to do the right thing. And that's what she responded to. She had to do the right thing. And thinking about this character of Beth, and as I said, and how she reminds me of my own mother in certain ways, you know, it's the thing I feel about it is sometimes people who act so cold are the exact opposite. Mm-hmm. They're just so sensitive that they can't deal with the difficulties of life. And that's how I feel about Beth. Beth is so sensitive. She's so wounded. She allowed herself to open up to one person. And that was her son, Buck. Mm-hmm. And what happened to Buck? Buck died. Yeah. So she's not going to open herself up again. She's not going to allow herself to be hurt that deeply. And Mary, you know, obviously Mary Tyler Moore had some of her own issues with her own son, mm-hmm. which we'll talk about in a bit, you know, very tragic. But she also said that this role of Beth reminded her very much of her own family. She said, particularly her father. Her father was very inaccessible like Beth. He was unable to access his emotions and express his love to his daughter. You know, even after her success, I remember her telling stories about he would come to the taping of the Mary Tyler Moore show and he would just sit there stone-faced. You know, and you're like, your daughter is Mary Tyler Moore, for Christ's sake. She turns the world on with a smile. And you're just totally unemotional. So it's I think she had such a great handle on that character because that's the way those people are. They're so brittle, they'll break. You know, they can't allow themselves, they can't allow the facade to go down because when they have, they've been devastated.
Yeah, I could see that clearly. I did have a very hard time being sympathetic towards her. Maurice was totally sympathetic. He's like, he got it. He's like,
Yeah.
like you said, she's a victim. She is hurting probably more than the rest of them.
Mm-hmm.
And I saw all of that. You know, it was very clear to me the pain she was in and how she was raised and everything. And despite all that, I still just couldn't stand the woman.
Well,
I just wanted to slap her across the face.
She did a great job. I mean, she did.
She did beautifully.
You know what the key is? The key to that character are those flashback scenes. Those scenes where there's that one scene where she's got her long hair and she's remembering a scene with Bucky and Conrad, and it's almost incestual the way she looks at Buck, the way she's flirtatious with her son. She's looking at him, you know, like she'd look at a lover. And that tells you right there, this woman opened up for one person. And I believe that, you know, Calvin says that to her, you know, all of the best of you went with Buck. You gave love to one person. And I love those flashback scenes because you kind of see, I love seeing how she was with Buck, and you realize that she held, that boy was her pride, her heart, and that heart was shattered when he was killed. So how's she going to react?
I do have to say, though, they did I agree. It was, the one with Buck was really well done. When they showed the dance scene, where the flashback with her and her husband.
Yeah.
They put the ponytail on her, which was kind of funny, but, you know, they're trying to make her look young. They did absolutely nothing to make Donald Sutherland look younger. They didn't even change his hairstyle. I'm like, what? Now she's with an old man.
Mary Tyler Moore always had a different hairstyle for every flashback. She had the long hair, and then she kind of had a feathered thing when Conrad tried to kill himself, and then she had the ponytail.
But the way she carried herself and her look and everything, she did a good job of looking young.
Oh, she did. She did. You know, and that scene, the camera scene where they're trying to take the picture, which is just like the tensest scene. Oh my God. I love that scene.
That I was literally sick to my stomach.
It is so tense. What's happening is that the family is visiting Beth's parents, and they're trying to take a family photo, and Beth's father can't work the camera. I'm like, how difficult is it is this your first time working a camera, dude? Come on.
It was a new camera to him. Who knows?
I guess so. But the tension between Beth and Conrad, and then they want to get a picture of the three of them, and then Donald Sutherland's character, Calvin, says, I want to get a picture of Beth and Conrad, and they look at each other. Let's not do this. No, not a good idea. But they try. They really try, and he just can't get the Calvin's taking too much time to focus. And finally, the tension between them. I mean, can you imagine your mother's looking at you like, I don't want to get a picture with you? You know, it's just like, it's gut-wrenching. It's gut-wrenching. And finally, Conrad explodes and says, give it the fucking camera. And the scene's over. And then Beth goes into the kitchen, and you hear something drop. You hear a plate drop. And she's broken a plate, and she's sitting on it. She's kneeling on the floor, and her mother comes in, and Beth says, "It's a clean break," and that's her life summed up in that line. If something is going to break, it has to be a clean break, so it can be saved. What happened with Bucky was not a clean break, and that's why she can't deal with it. And she continually says in the rest of that scene with her mother, I think this can be saved. I think this can be saved. Yeah. And that's the key to that character. She has to have a clean break. She can't deal with something if it's a mess. And that's what her life has become, is a mess.
There were a lot of painful scenes in this film, and that was one that it was physically painful to me. You could see that sheet of ice between her and her son.
Yeah.
And I wanted to take him and hold him.
I wanted to take her and hold her. That scene
They both needed a hug.
Yeah. Well, that scene in the garden, another one of those scenes. She's trying. She was trying. She sees him sitting out there, and she's trying to just have some kind of connection with him, and he has to go and bring up Buck. And she just can't take it. And she immediately shuts down. And gets up, and they start talking over each other. And then he does the dog barks, and she's just like, put that sweater on. I'm out of here, you nut job. I mean, she can't deal. She can't deal.
And the scene in the garage, I felt so sad for the father. Just finally wanting to talk about it, and he just couldn't break through that.
Yeah, it's just so it's a heartbreaking film, and you know, at the end when Calvin says, "I don't think I love you anymore," you know, and she just looks at him and silently turns around and walks up the stairs, and then goes to that closet and brings that suitcase down, and then for a second, it hits her, and she almost loses it, but she doesn't. It is heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking because you wonder, how is this woman going to continue?
Yeah.
You know, she's lost her husband and, you know, both of her sons. It gets me every time.
Again, she is a tragic character, but I was very happy for her husband and her son, that they are together, and I think they can move forward.
Yeah.
Donald Sutherland's character, he was clearly hurt. Timothy Dalton's character, it was just like a shrug.
Timothy Hutton.
Timothy Dalton. Yeah, Timothy Dalton. When he was young, he played. Timothy Hutton, his character was somewhat nonchalant. He was more concerned about his father.
Well, he
didn't really ask for details.
He's healed, or he's healing.
Yeah,
that's the thing. Think about him at the beginning of the movie. He is dealing with his demons. He's dealing with his issues. Now it's their turn.
Yeah, at the end of the movie, he's the strongest character.
He's the strongest character at the end of the movie, and he tells his father he loves him, and that's so you know there's hope for Calvin, because that's a beautiful scene at the end when the camera just pulls back and there they are, and you know Mary Tyler Moore is gone in the taxi. God knows she's going back to Texas to her brother, and so you know they're going to be okay. But wow.
Yeah, and it's not that I'm unsympathetic towards Mary's character, but there comes a point where you just have to realize there's nothing I can do to chip away.
No, it's true.
So I have to move on.
And look, I don't think you need necessarily to have understanding for her or sympathy for her, but I don't like either when people say she's a bitch, because she's not a bitch. That's too easy. That's too clean. That's too surfacey. No, this is an incredibly wounded woman. And I don't think you're supposed to feel warm for her. You're supposed to feel exactly what you feel, you know, uncomfortable around her.
I'm sympathetic in the fact that I understood where her pain was coming from. I was not sympathetic in that she didn't even, I know she seemed to try in that yard, but she didn't really seem to try. She wouldn't let those barriers drop.
I just don't think
for more than a second.
She couldn't. I mean, there's some people who just can't, and you just have to get to a point in your life where you say, God bless you, and move on.
Wish you the best.
Yeah, wish you the best and move on. If they're a family member, you just deal with them the best you can and know that somewhere inside she loves him. She just can't access it. And you know, how genius of Robert Redford to look at what someone would derogatively call a sitcom actress and realize these depths, the depths of this talent and the depths of the emotion in this woman. You know, it's staggering. You know, the very, very tragic thing about this is that 3 weeks after Ordinary People was released, life kind of imitated art, and Mary Tyler Moore's only son, Richie, died he accidentally shot himself in the head. So her only son. Yeah. And she had a very, very conflicted relationship with her son. You know, Richie was a child when Richie on the Dick Van Dyke Show was a child. They used to play together. So he saw his mother through this incredible career, but she was never there. You know, she tried to be there. So she had a very difficult relationship with him. So can you imagine? I mean, her sister had died. Now her son dies. Mary Tyler Moore, a survivor for sure, you know, dealing with her diabetes and all of these tragedies in her life. It's just so, I never forget that adds an extra layer to me, that meta layer, knowing what happened to her real son shortly after this film was released.
Yeah, I can't imagine having this movie come out at that same time.
I mean, yeah. And then to lose the Oscar. What the? No, I can't. So, yes.
But I mean, I can imagine people praising her for what a great movie is, continuously reminding her that life imitated art here. It's just...
Well, yeah. I mean, how do you ever watch...
God, how painful.
How do you ever watch this film again and not think about the own tragedy in your life, which mirrors it? You know,
I even wonder if she could.
I guess we'll never know. We'll never know. But yes, Ordinary People.
I got to bring up one of the conversations that just also hit me in the gut
Please.
was when I'm going to use their real names because I can't think of the characters. When Donald Sutherland asked her, "Do you love me?" Rather than saying, "I do love you," she said, "I feel the same way I always did."
Yes.
It's like, oh my God, it's a dagger through the heart.
Yeah.
The look on his face, that look alone should have got him an Oscar.
No,
It's just,
he should have. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. I don't know how you eliminate some of the other guys, but yeah, I agree with you. I agree.
or at least a nomination.
So yes, Ordinary People won Best Picture. It won 4 Oscars, 6 nominations. Judd Hirsch was also nominated for Best Supporting Actor, and Mary Tyler Moore was nominated for Best Actress. It won Best Picture, Best Director, Robert Redford, Best Adapted Screenplay, Alvin Sargent, and Supporting Actor was Timothy Hutton,
who was 20 years old at the time and is still the youngest winner of Best Supporting Actor.
Isn't that amazing?
And, he really, to me, he was the primary character and he really deserved to win the Best Actor award. I get it. There's no way in the world he would have won. That it just would never have happened. So it's best for him, but it still drove me crazy.
Well, yeah. I know what you mean. Yeah, unfortunately, it's been it hasn't gotten a bad reputation, but its reputation has kind of gone down over the years as time has gone on, and people, mostly, as I said, due to Raging Bull, but it also beat The Elephant Man. It beat Coal Miner's Daughter. It beat Tess. I think it's a brilliant, brilliant Best Picture winner. And I got to tell you a very funny story. For some reason, I have this memory. Lillian Gish presented Robert Redford with Best Director Oscar. And I swear to God, when she was, however old I was, 12-year-old, when she was reading the nominees, I'm watching, and I believe she said, Robert Redford for Ordinary Purple. So whenever I think of this movie now, I think of Ordinary Purple.
That was the prequel to The Color Purple.
The Color Purple, exactly. So anyway, I want to wrap up something. You've talked about narcissistic personality disorders on this podcast, and I want to read something to you. I got something to read that journalist Julia Hall said, and she's written extensively about narcissistic personality disorder, and she praised Mary Tyler Moore for taking such a career risk. She said, scaffolding gaping emptiness with a persona of perfection, supported by denial, blame, rejection, and rage. And that's the thing. The rage in Beth is so staggering that she can't let it out. It's the complexities of this performance, of this character, are phenomenal.
Yeah, she's the type of person when she walks in the room, when she's in that state, you can't wait for her to leave.
Yeah, exactly.
That household is one when you walk in the front door, you feel like you have to kind of push the tension aside to get through.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Or wear a really, really big parka because it's cold in that house. It's cold in that Jarrett house. So this obviously started Robert Redford on an incredibly successful directing career. He directed 9 more films so far. Quiz Show, which I love. A River Runs Through It. Something else I love. And unfortunately, we just lost Donald Sutherland recently. It wasn't that long ago that Donald Sutherland died, but we lost Mary, of course. Very, very sad, but God, what a legacy of this woman. And I mean, even if she had just been Laura Petrie and Mary Richards, case closed, full stop.
Yeah.
To add this performance to that is just phenomenal. So Brad, why don't you tell us how this film performed when it was released?
Well, you've got to remind me in the future. I want to talk to get people in the perspective of the time. I want to talk about other films that came out during that same year. So to give people an idea,
good idea.
Here's what came out that year that you'll remember. There were a lot of movies, but Caddyshack, Private Benjamin, The Blues Brothers, The Shining, and then the ones that were the top grossing films. I'm going to start with this film. This film was made with a $6.2 million budget.
Yeah.
It grossed $52 million. Now, adjusted for inflation, I love to do that.
Yeah.
Adjusted for inflation, it earned $202 million by today's dollars.
Wow.
Pretty damn good.
Pretty damn good.
But it was only number 10th that year. Number 10. And the reason is because we had some big ones. Some hold up. Some I don't ever want to see again. The number one, should be no surprise, Star Wars Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back.
Well, yeah.
Then a movie that I know will not hold up is Stir Crazy. I know that had Richard Pryor. Was that also with
Gene Wilder.
Gene Wilder? Okay, I wasn't sure if he was the co-star.
Yeah.
Then we had Kramer versus Kramer.
Ah.
We had Airplane. And the one that certainly does not hold up, it didn't even hold up at that time, was Any Which Way You Can. Which was the orangutan.
We talked about that with but I love Ruth Gordon. Goddamn ape eating all my Oreos, crapping all over the place. 12 ribs, my ass. No, I know it's funny. It doesn't hold up.
I love Ruth Gordon. I can't believe she was even in that film. I remember nothing about it.
It's the only thing I watch.
Probably on purpose.
It's the only thing I watch in that. I think Kramer versus Kramer was 79. It must have been 79 to 80 kind of thing. Because Hoffman won. Hoffman won Best Actor 79. So.
Oh, really? That's kind of weird. Yeah.
It was probably one of those ones.
Maybe it was. Maybe it was on the borderline.
Yeah. Well, it made
in December.
Huge amount of money. So it was probably it. That was probably it.
Now, as far as the critics go, it was Rotten Tomatoes. The critic score is 89%, and the audience score pretty much matches at 88%.
Mm-hmm.
And I do have one little bit of trivia here. As I'm looking through the other films that came out this year, there was a film that came out that year that I didn't even know existed.
Oh, really?
The Gong Show movie.
Oh, I remember that.
I don't remember it, but I do love this quote. George Burns went and saw it.
Uh-huh.
And his quote for this was, "For the first time in 65 years, I wanted to get out of show business."
Oh, that's great. I love that. That sounds like one of those lines at that ridiculous party that Calvin and Beth went to. I love another line from that party is this guy says, "I have no idea what my schedule is, but I'm free almost every day."
And folks, as I said before, if you've listened to us this far, it must mean you somewhat enjoy the show, because I don't think you put yourself through pain if you didn't. So please tell your friends to have a listen. And you know what? Let others know that you don't even know by going to Apple or Spotify or whatever app you listen to and rate and review us, please.
Right, exactly. And be sure and stay tuned throughout this month, because as I said, it's Mother's May, and we have some wonderful mother movies coming up. One which features the biggest mother of them all, and that's all I'm going to say. So, Brad, is there anything more we want to say about Ordinary Purple and this film?
No, I did release some of my pain and anxiety talking about it.
Good, I'm glad. Well, I guess that leaves us with only one thing left to say, Brad. But I don't want to say it. So let's not say goodbye. Let's just say au revoir.
No, let's say goodbye.
Goodbye, everybody.